Here's my impression of the main character walking around.
Which is very good for an audio podcast. Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 445. Question of the week. What's a song from a video game that makes you emotional? And that could be any kind of emotion.
I don't get emotional.
I think you do. Probably less than the least out of the three of us.
That's probably true.
Probably.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because when I go into movies, shows, video games, books, I give myself to that medium because I want to be moved emotionally.
Yeah.
I want to be excited.
Yeah.
I want to be mournful. I want to
Aroused.
be angered and enraged. All of those emotions and more.
That's not.
I do that with film more than I do with video games. I'll say that I do that
Ooh.
with stuff. In fact, a show made me
Film
emotional today.
Film probably gets me more than sound too, just generally.
Than sound?
You know what I'm trying to say, and
Beep boop.
get over the fact that I'm a poor communicator.
Nolan,
Yeah.
what is... but that being said, there is
That
at
said,
least a song
yes.
that has made you emotional.
And it is from Zelda, of course. But it's probably not. It's not from the game that you probably thought I was going to say. It's from Twilight Princess,
Interesting.
which y'all have never played, and I can't wait for you to play it. But there's a song on there called Midna's Lament. Now, Midna is your companion in that game, so like Navi from Ocarina of Time. And there's a part of the story that I won't spoil. It's just piano, and it's raining, and you are rushing to get help to help this person, and it is a very impactful song. And that part of the game is so good.
Your tears are wailing
Wailing.
up in your eyes.
W-A-I.
Wailing in your eyes right now. Kenny. Oh, great.
Yeah, I was thinking about going like low-hanging fruit and send like Eris song or something from Final Fantasy VII, which has
cop-out.
feels. But I wanted an emotion I cared about more, and so I went for nostalgia as the emotion. And I'm gonna say theme song Halo 2.
Ooh.
Evocative on its own and good, but just comes with lots of feels that are more nostalgia than anything else, but makes me long for a day.
Kenny, you're not on TikTok, so you don't know this. Maybe you've seen it. But there are clips of like guys in the boys' bathroom at school, like echoing the choir part. Like it's like 5 of them
like
singing it.
Singing
yeah,
that?
and it sounds really accurate and really good because it's echoing.
Just to clarify, Kenny's not on TikTok because he doesn't want China to get his information. One of the songs
that's
that...
One of many reasons.
One of the songs
big one.
that... so, of course, Aerith's theme. But even, hey, in a different emotion, One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII, the Sephiroth song.
I know. You
What
gotta
emotion
give us
is
a
that,
non-FF You have to give us at least one non-FF7 answer, though.
I will, but I will say that I heard both of those at the Remake Orchestra World Tour.
Oh, that's great.
Ooh.
And... oh, no, actually, I'm not going to give you any more because I just need to tell a little story time.
Okay.
I was going into this, and my wife took me for an event, I don't remember, but she asked if I was going to like get emotional or anything like that. And I said, no. Like, my full intention and plan was no,
You're like,
probably
me?
not.
No.
And then you just man wept.
Listen, the first note of the first song.
Oh, God.
Because what they did on the screen, you know, they have a screen at these events.
It's visual
Of course.
representation of it.
So it was the remake World Tour, right? But they started with the original Final Fantasy VII opening cutscene before moving it to the new stuff.
Oh, that's good.
With that opening theme, I was weeping.
Played well and
Like, you talking about the
I
chimes,
bet.
the ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. I mean, that's the theme and everything. While
I'm
it's
sure it was just like full on tears.
That was the only time in the concert. Like once I got it together, But that one, 2 Xanarkin is a Final Fantasy X one.
That
So
was
I
so
know
good,
all of
too.
these are against.
No, FF
but I
has
honestly,
a lot of emotional songs.
I'm trying to think. Like musically, I think Final Fantasy might be the only series that has done it for me. There's been other games that have evoked emotion, but probably not on the Sonic front. It's been through story or characters or things like that. If video game songs tend to get you in your feels, I've got a game that can get you in your heels, like a healing spell for when you've taken damage.
Yeah.
Don't explain it. Don't justify the bad
Welcome
transition
back,
with an explanation.
I didn't want them to think like bottom of the feet heels. I wanted them to think what paladins do, like in our retro game of the week, SpellForce, the Order of Dawn.
Overview.
SpellForce, the Order of Dawn, is a 2003 real-time strategy married to RPG love child for the PC. It was developed by Phenomic Game Development.
Defunct, I believe.
Defunct. And it was produced by Joe Wood Productions.
Encore.
Probably. Oh, wait, no.
Right?
Oh, Joe Wood may have done the some of the not sequels,
ports or
expansions.
Oh yeah,
You're
right.
But you are right. Encore Inc. did the original, and again, I think they are also defunct.
That is something to call out because PC games at this time did that, where original release, a couple years later expansion, and then now it has a new name, like Diablo, and actually Diablo 2 did that with the Destruction expansion or whatever, and so you might see SpellForce not called Order of the Dawn. You might see it called Shadow of the Phoenix, which is just expansion.
Well, and I honestly, I think how people would play this today, it's by a different name altogether because they have like an edition that has all of them together, you know?
Yeah, like a collection.
Collection. Okay, so before we talk about what the merger of these two subgenres create, and I'm most excited for this episode to hear Kenny talk for obvious reasons, right?
Excited?
Because like if talking about us three, if we talk about like some traditional RPG, specifically JRPG, like I think that would be more in my camp. But when we talk,
take the J out of RPGs though, and I'm probably more the guy.
You might be, but I would say this is even more so in your camp because it even leans more in the real-time strategy things.
Absolutely, the era, the console, the fact that it was a PC game, the RTS nature of it, coupled with the RPG nature of it. This one ticks every single box that I've ever unboxed.
We have played a lot of different RPGs, so there's no reason to like camp out there. However, RTS we've had a little bit less time and experience with on the podcast. What are some of the RTSs that you remember that we have played thus far?
Dude, you sometimes ask this question, and I'm really good at it. I usually get all the answers. I can't name one.
Not one?
Not one because...
Something Zwaghinder?
He's not even going to say StarCraft. I know that one.
You think Zweihander is
That's not RTS. That's a shooter.
RTS?
That's not RTS. There was a German name then that was an RTS.
Oh, you're right. It was on a console too. You just jogged my memory. I forgot what it was called though.
I thought it.
We played Herzog Zwei.
Herzog Zwei is what I'm thinking of.
That's
Sorry, Zwei is what
episode
was sticking
55.
But dude, no, I blocked them out immediately. If it's a Kenny game, like chances are, I'm asleep. Like, I can't name one. I'm sorry. Besides StarCraft.
Well, that's bad. Okay, well, StarCraft, yes, that's one of them.
There you go.
We've also played Warcraft 2 and Age of Empires 2, both classics, huge.
Both great games.
We played Dungeon Keeper, the one that I'll always remember, even though I don't know if we gave it New Game Plus status. And then one that y'all don't think is RTS in Pikmin.
No, I don't.
I wasn't there for Pikmin.
That's not a PC RTS, traditional RTS.
I know.
Whoa. The first one that y'all named was Herzog Zwei, which is not a traditional PC RTS.
No, but it's more so an RTS than Pikmin is.
Well, I mean, you can take that up with the Pikmin producers and the RTS community.
I'll talk to them.
I cannot
not
believe
scared
that
of
Kenny didn't play Pikmin. Okay, before I talk about the story, can we just briefly, we're going to talk about it in gameplay more extensively, but what does this mean and look like when you take real-time strategy that you can think of Age of Empires 2, Warcraft 2, things like that, and you marry it with role-playing, and think more traditional RPG. So, think tabletop RPG, honestly. Like, this is very, like, some of those characteristics and qualities. And you merge them together and you get this. What does that look like? Yeah.
It's interesting because that really is the whole discussion here. And you keep calling it an RTS that's married to an RPG. I feel like the implication of order there might actually matter a little bit. This one to me feels like an RPG with very heavy RTS elements. I feel like it was RPG first.
Nolan's shaking
personally.
his head
I kind
yes
of agree
as
with
well.
that, yeah.
Okay,
But
now
also, I don't think it's that out of the question, the marriage of those two genres. They are...
No, it can work.
Yeah, they're totally,
And
tangent.
has worked in some ways before, and I'll talk
Sure.
about it more as we're talking about this game and contextualizing it a little bit. But it's almost impossible to talk about this game and not also bring up Warcraft 3. Much more of an RTS, but an RTS that brought in some very overt RPG elements in sort of having primary heroes that were part of your army and making choices and leveling them up, grabbing items for them, getting them experience. It's probably the closest known mainstream game, if we're going to pick something that tried to dabble in both genres, that exists. And yet this is a very different game from that. And so it's a very interesting conversation, Dustin, and I don't even know what your question is.
He said, "What does that mean, and what does it look like?"
Yeah,
what
what does
it
it
looks
mean?
like. The closest thing I know of isn't RTS. It's actually turn-based. But Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Kenny,
Yes,
that
this has Heroes of Might and Magic 3 vibes.
yes,
for
but
sure.
real time, which is very
Right.
different than turn-based. So
Very
it's
different.
strange to throw in RTS with anything. I think so.
But it's got some of those vibes for sure. Even some of the non-Heroes games, some of the like classic Might and Magic games had some elements of moving around your armies, and there was a vibe of like mid 90s through early 2000s, especially fantasy strategy RPG types of games, that this one it scratches that itch. It won't surprise you to hear that this is from a German developer. If you didn't know that, it's going to explain so many things
What you talking about, Willis?
what they were trying to do, about translation, some of the things that we'll talk about as we get deeper into this episode.
the story is it's expansive. There's a lot of story here. I'll make it brief. The world of Io was once full of different creatures and races, nothing new. We've got elves, we've got dwarves, we've got humans, all of that stuff that you're familiar
Orcs,
with. Yeah.
like pretty normal stuff.
13 powerful wizards decided to put an end to war once and for all by creating a warring race of rune warriors to bring peace to the land. But something went wrong, and the world was fragmented. And one of the last remaining wizards hopes to make things right. So that wizard wakes you from your slumber, and you are the first rune warrior that is now in control of your own fate. So you set out to bring peace to the world. We now have a bonus episode exclusive for those on Patreon.
Episode is not an over-exaggeration. It's a full episode.
And it's an episode that you get to be a part of.
Yeah, it's called Expansion Pack, and semi-regularly you get to be a part of the conversation, and we're going to debate, and we're going to scream at each other.
We're gonna talk about video games. Yeah, we're gonna scream mostly though. That's kind of the point of it.
Yeah, we'll be like goats.
You roast us, we roast you. Find out more information at patreon.com/NGP podcast.
Gameplay.
This game has a tutorial, which is super nice to have a tutorial in a RTS game specifically, because there's a lot going on in an RTS game. This tutorial, however, you need it, but this tutorial assumes you aren't a human. I felt like I was an AI being trained by a large language model, because they would tell you obvious things. And please go watch the first play right now if you're listening to this. Go watch the first play.
You didn't live tweet it. I didn't know you watched it.
Well, you were gone when I finally watched it, and I was just going to save it for the episode. It's hilarious. This tutorial, there's a narrator that's telling you everything, but too much. Like things that they should assume the player knows how to walk forward and after you get the controls and stuff, but like it then lets you like continue and progress if you want, but there's no logic coded in to the narrator to know what you've done yet.
Which is crazy.
Like, Dustin's like 5 steps ahead and he's like, kill the centaur. He's like, done, been done.
He got super frustrated, but he also didn't respect that it was obviously like on a timer and just accept that and go through the process. This tutorial can be much less painful if you put on your patience pants and just like do what it
he's
says.
Right. If you carve out 6 months, you'll be able to get through it real.
It is too slow.
It is so slow. There's no speeding it up.
Pacing is in the tutorial especially, but throughout this game, one of the issues we're going to talk about a lot. However, Dustin was also a little bit ridiculous.
No, I feel like he was more sane than me.
18 things ahead, and then like being frustrated with the fact that it doesn't.
He thinks
know
you're
that.
10 yards backwards.
In what game is a tutorial predetermined on its rate and does not adjust to where you are? That's unheard of.
The logic isn't there.
That's unheard of.
It felt behind its time on how many rails.
I love
they
that
gave
Kenny's
you for
already
the
started.
logic.
I know,
the
he's defending.
It's a
Which,
1993 style tutorial.
This is 03,
but no,
man. Come on.
you can click a button and then let something talk and then click another button and it's fine. The tutorial made for a really funny first play though, so go watch Dustin suffer.
But do you think it teaches you anything? Dustin, did you feel like you came out of it knowing how to play the game?
I certainly think a tutorial was necessary for a game like this. When you've got two genres like that are already complex, and then you put them together
1000%.
to create something new, then you certainly need it. Now, the tutorial takes about an hour. I didn't even finish the tutorial during my first play experience, and then I edited it down to like a 12-minute video. And so like, it's not a good tutorial, but I would rather this bad tutorial than no tutorial at all.
It is somewhat emblematic of the actual game, though, because your maps that you play individually are not generally short. The tutorial is probably about the length of a normal map session.
Yeah.
I'm summarizing, like there's some longer ones, some shorter ones, but most of them are going to be hour-plus play sessions because this game isn't in a hurry, and it's not trying to be. It's wanting you to sit down and really immerse yourself and get into the story and the strategy and like the whole thing. It's taking its time. But you said tutorial was needed. I think it's extra needed, not just because it's RTS and RPG, but also because they just do so many non-conventional things, which I like and respect here. And we'll talk about what some of the other non-conventional things they do are, but even the way you move and click, the way your camera moves is not necessarily intuitive at first. It doesn't feel natural.
We're on the same page.
Some of the interfaces are things that you're going to need to learn and figure out how to navigate because they don't feel like the way other games have done things. And so, just as one example of this, your normal like click move in most RTS types games is an attack move. Like you just move, and if you see things along the way, you attack. They don't have the normal attack move here. So even the types of things you're doing to just like exist in this world are all things that you have to learn and are different. That's both a good and a bad thing, but it's worth pointing out this tutorial is life or death. You have to go through it.
I want to stop with the comparisons, and I will, but I do want to make one more to help people bridge the gap that might have this reference point. A more modern game, which not even came out a few years after this one, maybe 07. It was Dragon Age Origins. Now, that game does implement RPG first with the battle mechanics are RTS-ish. You could And I think that game executes it better. I think the controls are more approachable. But this game doesn't just do that. It has like out of combat RTS like resource management stuff that you'd be more familiar with from Warcraft, from StarCraft. So it's not just like the combat's RTS. It's larger. It's like the scale
it's
of a
actually
normal.
an RTS game.
Yeah, like Builder
yes.
almost.
I think it could be helpful for us to talk about some of those defining characteristics that it has of both genres, because I do agree with you that it has some of those RPG-like aspects of Dragon Age and other games like that, in which you have in this game you have an avatar, like your main character.
Right. You have a character who is you.
Who is you, and you,
or who you are them, rather.
there are fights and battles that happen like a mixture of RPG, RTS there, but you gain experience, you level up, you grow attributes, you
have
place
an
attributes,
Right.
learn new abilities.
You choose your stat allocations.
Yeah.
You choose the
Very RPG.
the skill tree that you want to move into. RPG, and a fairly in-depth
Yeah, it's
one,
not
too.
light
not
on
even,
RPG.
Not even RPG light.
Right.
It is RPG.
And then you have the RTS elements. So you have certain segments. You can't do this at all times necessarily, but when the game allows you to or directs you to, you create villagers that gather resources, your standard resources, right? They might call it different things, but it's your wood and it's your iron and it's your
you had stone and iron and food
and
that you had to collect and some other
use
things
those resources to build buildings. All of this sounds super familiar, right? And then you command armies and fight foes. So it's got those distinct elements, and it really does feel like at times, by the way, let me make it clear, you're not just doing either one of these whenever you want to. The game has really set it up, at least in my experience, of like,
dictating.
In this segment, you're going to be doing the RTS heavy stuff. Then you move to this next segment and you're going to be doing more of the RPG heavy stuff.
There are people who play a lot that claim that some of those things are optional, that even though they set you up, you can sort of choose not to interact with certain elements of the game if you want to. And I think there's ways to do that, but the game expects you normally to swap hats, to do RPG things, and then to do those concurrently while you're also doing real-time strategy based building.
And if it's not clear to you as we're talking about that, much like the tutorial, Kenny said it's representative. It is, because the pace of the game is very, very, very slow. Very slow.
I don't know if I played a slower game.
Dude.
But RTS for sure.
Yeah.
And RTS is already slow. Like this genre, the RTS genre in particular, already has some aging issues. We're not even into age yet, because it is for a generation that doesn't use TikTok.
Well, they've improved it also since
yes,
they,
you're right.
They have, but RTSs are the bread and butter of us millennials, and
so
yeah.
The pacing here is in those segments, mainly in the RTS segments. It feels almost more like a city builder at times too. If you're not into that, you'll feel every second that goes by, because you're reading a lot, you're looking at every item, you're trying to figure out, okay, why do I need this resource? What should I do with it? I don't want to make a mistake. Oh no, did I make a mistake? Am I gimping my progress? Like that part of the game to me was the huge slog, and then I preferred more the like explore around RPG-ish stuff, and even like the inventory, like in the stat stuff, I really enjoyed. But the pacing's off here, man. It's just really imbalanced.
It's a fairly slow game. It's not in a hurry. But again, I think
I knew playing this week.
Why
that
does
there
he
would
soften everything?
It's because here's the thing. I knew while I was playing this game that this is the kind of game that could enrage Nolan, and this is the kind of game that could enlarge Kenny. Like this is something that
I'm
enlarged.
huger than I was now.
Yeah, I mean, like this is and so what I'm hearing is Nolan's negativity, and then Kenny immediately couching it in a nicer way to
it's
say
taking
it.
its time.
Because it's slow. This game has pacing issues. I will give you that. Part of that is just because they decided to do non-conventional things. Some of that is just they could have literally just made things faster. Like, you can just let your person walk faster. And it's not like they didn't know that some of this was an issue, because they put in gameplay elements
that's run faster.
Yeah.
No, they do that as well, but they put in these bind stones where you can teleport around so that you can move large distances quickly. Like, there are things to kind of account for that. And I'm not saying there's enough of that it's still not a problem. It is. But they do things that are novel. Like, these developers were just kind of like, we're going to do what we want, and are very unapologetic about it. And that's for good and bad. When you do an RTS and you're like, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to have one building that all of your units come out of. Even if you're doing that for lore reasons, that breaks the mold of the typical way of doing an RTS, but is also very limiting on how quickly you can get an army out if you want to move fast and if you want to build a quick, town and then make a huge army. If you've got 5 barracks or whatever that are each producing a fighting unit, cool, I can go throw a whole bunch of people out and get them out and get them into the action. When they decide, no, we're going to mess with the accepted way of doing things and give this one main building all the control of all the units, even if it's for, like, story reasons, it's going to slow things down.
Okay, here's my impression of someone...
weird, novel things like that everywhere.
Here's my impression of the main character walking around.
Which is very good for an audio podcast.
And here's what's funny. Yeah, Nolan is walking slowly, miming it. Here's what's funny.
They're running lowercase.
If your units take damage, they walk slower.
Oh no!
Which is a
realism.
Cool realism. Like, these developers were trying, and they wanted it to be neat and to be novel, but it kind of bit them,
Okay, Kenny, let me ask you this, because I was thinking it as I was playing it. I was like, you know what? I would much rather have the RPG side only. Which one of the two would you have picked here?
This game is a much better RPG than it is an RTS. If you
At
could
least
have
you can
stripped that
admit
down, or made it RTS light, or made the point of the RTS to quickly develop a town, and depending on which town you built, that gave you which other heroes you were going to get to then accompany you, so you could customize a little party and then go quest with that party, because you get the other heroes that go along with your heroes you get later in the game. If that had been just driven by some strategy things in a little building, could have been cool. But as it was, it's hard when you do two things and mash them up to make them reconcile and work. It can happen. I hold up Warcraft 3 as an example of that working well. I think it can be done. But it can also be confusing. And this game has a little bit of an identity crisis going on as to which one it cares about more. And it should have let the RPG elements win more. I think the best example of that here is even how they did the camera. Forget the janky controls, because it was kind of hard to move around, but you could get used to that. But you could zoom it way out, and you could see all of the bigger scope of things to move your armies and to develop your town. And then if you wanted, you could zoom it all the way in to an over-the-shoulder, in tight view, third-person, almost first-person view, so that you could play this game as if you were your character. Yeah. And that's so, who can do that and do town management? But they were like, no, we're not going to pick one or the other. We're just going to let you do both. And you just figure it out. Strange.
I think it's important for us to, I don't know, maybe describe just a little bit more what you're doing in each scenario, because you're kind of given these. You've got a quest log, thank God. I've asked for quest logs for a few games now, but you get a quest log here, and you've got some main quests, you've got some side quests, and you're in a predetermined area, and each segment of the game takes place in that area, in which in a certain space of that you might be doing the RTS building thing, and another thing you might be forwarding the story or working on a side quest or a main quest or whatever. One of the things that that frustrated me was that I would do all this work to build up a town, to get an economy running, And after you finish that task in that area and teleport to the next, all your work is undone. So you don't
you just leave it and have to do it again.
You don't bring any of your army with you. You don't all of your stuff, even if you end up going back to that area, none of this stuff is built up there. So like
is that true?
Yeah.
I mean, there are persistent things that happen with your character.
Well, sure. RPG.
Leveling,
RPG.
Spells you've learned. What I don't recall, and you guys might be able to set me straight, is do town elements that you have found persist with your character? So if I've unlocked we need to talk through even that choice of how they did that. In fact, let me explain that really quickly before we move on.
Yeah, because I don't even know what you're talking about.
Most RTSs, it's just like build your town. If you build a prerequisite building, you can then build the next building, whatever. It might slowly unlock that as you go. This game doesn't do that. It ties it into the RPG stuff and your character story by making you find blueprints for those buildings if you want to get new types of units, and it does that as you adventure. So it's giving you a reason to go explore side caves and to make sure you kill all the critters and do the stuff to get all of the things you want to unlock and then build in your town.
Yes,
I think
you don't get those for free.
Which
is weird.
The stuff you find and unlock, all of that persists.
Right.
But
Stays. It's like your spell book. You've unlocked
all the tangible work that you've done. Again, the building up of the army, which is a key thing.
Right.
Does not carry over with you.
Gone.
So you go to a new area to continue the story, and it's like you're just so it felt really disjointed. Like it was just giving you, here's a scenario, complete the scenario, and then we'll move on to a totally different thing. Yes, some of those, your avatar is the only thing that persists, and it just made at least that persists, but it made just the world and the storytelling and everything else that it's really going heavy on, more heavy than a lot of RTS games, feel disjointed and incomplete.
I treated the RTS section as a hub world, or like as a base.
Yeah.
And
temporary.
if you do that, you'll be disappointed. Because it's a time sink again. Like I said, it's a huge session to sit down and do that portion of the game before you progress. It's not like 10, 15 minutes. It's way longer than that. And so to have that start over when you make progress, I don't know.
The problem is with an RTS, you kind of have to have that if you're going to do a real-time strategy game. And I think this game did support multiplayer and a number of different things that let you go in and do RTS-ish
stuff has to be new
in a
constantly.
Pretty typical way. Yeah, that's fine. But the fact that they just do a cutscene and then it seems like your story's continuing and you're moving on, but it didn't reset. Even if they each chapter, if they had put a little finish and taking you back to the original menu. And then we're and now do the next chapter.
Yeah.
And you started it, and then you're okay, fresh town.
Go
there's
back.
a lore reason.
Yeah.
It could have felt a little better, but as it was, it felt like you were going on this adventure, but it felt I don't know, you were in some kind of weird time loop. No accidental spoilers there for bigger story things. I don't know if you guys got into that.
You think Nolan and I know the lore that
Dude,
well?
I've seen Lost. It's a rewatch.
Oh my gosh. I will say this. This is one of those games, and these genres, maybe a little bit less RPG, it's really the more of the RTS stuff, that there is something fascinating about it. And it goes back to my Age of Empires 2 as a youngin'. I was never great at it. Don't go back and listen to the episode because you'll find material where Kenny was able to trounce both me and Nolan. It was illegal.
That never happened.
But I was never great at it, but I always loved the concept and the idea of it, and I adore watching people play these kinds of games. This is a kind of game that I knew after the tutorial that I didn't want to play. Did I play more? Yes, for your sake. But I knew that I didn't want to play more. But you know what I did want to do? I wanted to watch someone play it. And so I watched hours and hours and hours of someone knowledgeable of the game and its mechanics play through this game this week on hard mode. I didn't have Kenny to do this for me.
I'm gonna say, if you'd been in town, I know you were traveling, but if I'd been around, I would have played for you.
This was a professional when it comes to SpellForce that was being able to play the game without the problems that I was facing of a newbie, and it was enjoyable to watch someone that knows what they're doing play a game like this.
Let me ask you that: is the story compelling? Is it good?
It's
fine.
I think it's better than what a lot of RTS stories are, for sure.
It gets weird, but they at least tried to do a lot of that.
Of course, it
like,
gets weird.
Like even, I mean, you could tell even from the beginning that they were going to care a little bit here, because this game opens with what's a really impressive.
It's crazy.
I know for the time, and I know like the graphics aren't perfect, but it looks good, and like you're like, this is about to be epic.
And then you meet Bart Boggleson.
Is that a real person's name?
That's the real name.
Bart Boggleson?
Yeah.
I again, watching Kenny or some stranger on YouTube who has a whole channel dedicated to SpellForce content. Yeah, it's something that I don't want to play, because I think this is one of those games and sub merger genres that such a few number of gamers are going to like and be good at.
I think, and be good at is maybe fair. I think you'd be a little surprised. I feel like this game has a bit of a cult following. It wasn't wildly popular.
There are so many games, though,
relative to other stuff, and I think it was more popular in Europe than it was here.
I believe that.
But the people that like this game really, really like this game. And it's just very interesting to me how divisive it is. Because there's people who bounce off hard, and then there's people who are like, oh, it's scratching all my itches.
But that's what happens with this subgenre. You guys are weird, and y'all, there's like, I think you can find any RTS and find a weird 2,000 people that play it still, and like that have a community that have kept it alive to some degree. And
I know it's not RTS, but I mentioned Heroes 3 community. They loved that game.
All 2,000 of them.
Absolutely.
It's still thriving.
And they're not wrong.
No, they're not wrong. That game's sick.
Aged.
Do you remember how the Typing of the Dead had the best voice acting? Like it was intentional?
Yeah. I remember.
SpellForce The Order of Dawn has the most silly effort of voice acting that I've ever... Like, silly as in... it's AI. This can't be real people doing real dialogue.
It's
not the good bad kind, like from Typing of the Dead, where it's like it's painfully flat voice acting. They tried to do the opposite emotion that was needed for that scene or for that line. They were like, if it was like supposed to be like serious, they were like, woohoo.
I think it's two things, and one of these is a supposition, and I don't know, but I'm going to make an assumption. But yes, some of it is laughably bad, and awful, and was very, very, very poorly acted. But what drives me crazy is that some of it isn't. Like, it's not consistent. It's not like
they'll sneak in a good one.
The quality is just every once in a while you have a character who feels like you're like, oh, why didn't you just do this with all of them? Because that was fine. But it feels like the developers did the voice acting.
Exactly. Like Half-Life.
Not actors, because it's poorly done. But I also think the developers, who, again, I pointed out earlier, were German.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
Did the voice acting.
You're right.
So I don't think I think these are English as a second language.
Germans, yeah.
Translations plus attempts at acting when you're not a professional actor, and it shows.
Wait, you're actually so true. That's exactly what happened. They can't convince me, even if the Wikipedia says otherwise. There's no way
that's exactly what happened. Kenny does know, and that is true. Kenny, can you then explain what happened with the audio balance? Because
dude,
I don't know.
I'm baffled.
Go watch the first play. This is your second.
When we play
warning.
first plays, we've had audio issues. In fact, the one before this that I played, the audio is off. The game audio is too low, and it just didn't work right. This one I tested, and got it. Only to find out the game is doing its own crazy audio.
It's got a mix. It has a mix.
Look, it was all here, and then certain effects would come on that would blow when the battle starts.
I typically watch the first plays and laugh a little bit. I laughed very loudly at the part of the first play when Dustin's playing, and it's the tutorial, of course. So he's already pissed about the tutorial being slow, and then he does something, and battle music comes on. But the narrator voice guy is still 3 steps back talking about the Avatar character. Hey, this is the introduction. and it's playing at the same time. But dude, the music is blaring. It hurts, but you can still hear the guy's monotone voice at the bottom. Like
there were times it was super weird and janky. I'm not taking that away from you. That was strange. The reason you had some of those moments of collision, though, was because they tried pretty hard to make music that conceptually worked with what was going on in the game. And the music that plays with it, I know, no, not groundbreaking. You have to do it. But, like, the music that plays with it I actually felt was pretty good. Like, I think the music itself sounds
But I don't even care.
Fine.
Why is it so loud?
I don't even care.
I think part of that was a you problem. I noticed some of it, but it wasn't nearly as bad as
no, I don't think
sound.
it was a
How
him
is it a
problem.
me
If
problem?
anything, it's a GOG problem on that release or that copy of the game. But I'm guessing
Maybe.
that the original did that. I'm just gonna.
I had to
guess.
go into options and bring it way, way, way
And then it
down.
doesn't do it real time, and so you got
Yeah,
even matter. But you have to hit accept.
You have
before
to
it
hit
saves
accept
it.
before it does it, which is not in any other game. It's got
I mean,
live
it's in
time.
some games.
Oh,
That is really annoying.
The audio front, and I know we already said it, we
Yeah.
can move on. I just want it to be clear that the audio front is one of the most suffering issues of this game that will be apparent straight away.
Yeah. The graphics are nostalgic of PC games at the time, for sure. But
Yeah.
dude, Kenny mentioned realism earlier in some of the aspects of gameplay, but they went for realism in other ways too. And it got pretty cursed at times. Mainly the faces. It's not GoldenEye bad, but like the imps, for example, that you fight, they gave human-like features, and so it just looks really terrifying, actually, but not in like an intentional way. It just looks wrong. So the environments and the inventory and the HUD and all that, I think, looked nice, but the character models and where they tried to get like the animations, I made fun of them running earlier. That's another thing with the character models. They just end up looking really like puppety, like a puppeteer's controlling them. I don't know.
It's definitely got an early PC era vibe to the look. I don't think it's a bad thing, and I get a little nostalgic for that. I really do. So I never was like
Same.
ugh
Yeah, it's fun.
to the visuals. I did to some of the like UI UX choices, both in like game design, and we talked through some of that, but in even just sort of like how they went about making you do things. And again, I don't mind developers being creative, and I love them trying new things. This game was very, very, very ambitious. But they broke a lot of conventions, and when you go back and try and play a game like this and it feels like there's extra hurdles to be able to play it, I feel like you've kind of shot yourself in the foot for how well your game is going to age. The people who know it or don't mind going through those hurdles are going to be like, oh yeah, that's fine, I can just like deal. But people who aren't maybe PC gamers or who didn't play early PC games and are trying to like get into a game like this, it's never going to work.
The usability of the heads-up display, I think, aged really poorly. I agree with you that they made weird decisions and it was hard to navigate, but the looks of the windows and everything, that's what I was saying, looks pretty good for, I mean, when you're considering how old the game is.
I'm agreeing. I think the game looks relatively nice for the era it was in and what it was trying to accomplish. Limitations they had.
And it was mentioned earlier, but I particularly think, and I don't, as far as I know, there's not cutscenes throughout the game, but the opening cutscene is pretty remarkable for a game like this.
Awesome.
Yeah, like
it's epic.
It is epic.
Yeah.
It again, it sets you up for something that you're not going to experience, but it does start strong with that for sure. Aged is such an important thing to talk about here, because we're talking about genres that have evolved tremendously, particularly
Absolutely.
RPG.
Absolutely.
And so going back to play some of these, not just because of how slow it is, we've exhausted that conversation, but UI and functionality and what you're actually doing and how to do it, all of these things require a manual or a tutorial to be able to know how this particular game does it. There are familiar things, right? Like I tested before it ever taught me, scrolling over 10 guys, control 1, and then being able to use the number 1
to group them,
right? Because that,
although even then they only give you 6 slots for some reason instead of all 10.
Right.
What?
But I'm just saying, like, I think that this is one of those genres in particular that has age against it severely, and it's felt here.
Yeah.
Here's what I ran into with the aging thing. I played this game a little bit. I felt all of that, and then I went, you know what? This feels like a new and novel thing. And if this is the game that first crossed over RTS and RPGs and was trying to figure out what that meant, I'm going to have some grace and I'm going to forgive them. And I assumed that this game was the predecessor to games like Warcraft 3.
Well,
when you go back and look at the time, this was not 2 years before. This was 2 years after.
Right.
And so it doesn't really hold up to my like, oh man, this is groundbreaking. It's still ambitious, and I still think the developers tried to do some really novel things, but it's not like they were treading completely new territory. And some of the places they tried to do novel things, they broke with tradition in ways that made the game more difficult to play and not just more intriguing. And so again, I don't blame them.
Can I say
and
this,
I know like Blizzard in its prime as the competition is unfair, but like
Blizzard was going to make Warcraft regardless if this game existed.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and it would have been as good as it is.
I thought this was influential, and I was going to say, cool, you did some novel things, and then other people took it and actually like refined it. But that's not what this was.
At least
it was
not
just
Blizzard's
another
case,
attempt at doing that, and not one that works quite as well for me.
It worked for some people because there is a SpellForce 2 and there is a SpellForce 3.
There's
And
one that came out last year, or was supposed to. There's a ton of games, like side games. Like there's a ton of SpellForce.
I'm not surprised because it was popular, and I will say, I hope those games are great because this game and I say this a lot, this game of all the games we've played may have the best like potential in it. I felt like they were really close to doing some really cool and novel stuff. And so I walked away from this game going like, I'd bet SpellForce 3 is sick. I want to play
maybe. Yeah, I would be interested to watch someone like Dustin watch someone play 2 and 3 and see how they made it better.
I would hope and believe that 2 and 3 are better than 1. Like you want to learn from each game and make it better. So
I don't assume anything anymore since we've been doing this show.
Well, you
never know.
One of the things that's nice is that each SpellForce, each of those games, but particularly we'll talk about the one that we're playing, has expansions. That's always a great
like 2 to
thing.
3.
When a company creates additional expansions for the game that supports it and makes it better. In fact, when you talk about Age of Empires 2, I know I've referenced it a lot. That's one of my major references, right? Yeah. It has, like, some of those expansions for it are what makes that game. You know? So, like, it's what makes a game more complete if
LOD
done well.
for Diablo 2. Diablo 2 would not be the game it is without LOD destruction.
That's so interesting.
LOD expansion.
And this game is easy to play today. I heard some people in our community had some difficulties getting the traditional PC version to work. Did y'all have issues?
Some with like video resolution stuff, but I fixed it quickly.
Yeah, I didn't have any, which is remarkable when you come play these old PC games because you can ask Nolan and he'll tell you that they usually will put a virus on your computer.
I mean, this game was made for Windows 2000.
It is both on Steam and on GOG for $10, but this week, and it includes the expansions, but this past week, I don't know if it's still available now, but it was on sale for $3 on GOG because
shout out
they
GOG
know.
for the copy.
They know.
Yeah, super easy, and everyone listens to our podcasts.
If you want a copy for your PC, you can still get one really easy. It's only $6 used or loose. It's $25 if you want it new in box.
That might be one of the cheaper retro games we've come across.
People are trying to get rid of it, Nolan.
I know you can't. It's not like you can put it in your computer.
Oh yeah,
you could.
Just buying
if
plastic.
You have a disk drive.
Actually, that's one of the TikToks. We've talked about TikTok a lot this episode, but one of the TikToks I'm watching a lot recently, it's this guy with an old Mac
I've seen
PC
him.
setup.
Love it.
And he pulls a game from his library, unboxes it, puts it in, does
so
the code to boot it up or to load it up, and it's so nice. He just did Roller Coaster Tycoon, and back brought memories.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status. It's our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Nolan, what did you think about the Order of Dawn?
Sucks. I want to I guess I prefaced it with that, but I want to say this, that this game is a great example of what I respect about PC gaming in 2003. They were experimenting, and I think that is good.
Mm-hmm.
What you get with that ends up being some of the most memorable, amazing games, and then some of the most like, "ooh, this did not land" kind of games, which... And also, in hindsight, that also resulted in some of the ideas and gaming standards we enjoy today because of those ambitious things that these developers kind of experimented with. But in the thick of it, you end up with a mess like SpellForce. And I am not against merging genres like this at all. Some amazing games do that. Some of my favorites, Slay the Spire, Kenny. Deck builder and a roguelike. That doesn't work. Oh, yeah, it totally does. Mario Golf. I mean, that sounds stupid, but it's an RPG, and you're also playing golf, and it's a Mario game. I mean, there are so many games that crossed over genres that end up working, but RTS mixed with RPG isn't out of the question to me, but RTS mixed with anything, I'm like, that's so scary to mess with that. And, dude, like... the devices they went with for both of those genres, you didn't know what kind of game it was. Someone said earlier that it was an identity crisis, and it is. And the main issue I have with the game is the pacing. It's a huge slog, and it really made me mad. And so I think the game sucks. I mean, don't play it. It's 2000. In 2003, this game felt old, or like it should have been better for the year it came out, is what I'm trying to say.
That's one no, I think. Kenny, what did you think?
Let me make a statement outside of context that is just an important thing to say. Human beings turn out better if they grew up playing StarCraft.
Are you trying to say I'm a bad person, Kenny?
No, but I'm implying...
Let me sniff my aromatherapy before I get mad.
I don't know. Okay, this game has me the most torn I've been in ages, which I am every week apparently, so like it's not even actually a surprise. I called it. We'll see on Dustin's what he said. But I'm pretty sure that Dustin and Nolan are going to hate on it. So I kind of want to give it a spite in GP just on principle alone, but that's not fair. So let's actually talk about the game. I think this is one of the most ambitious and promising series starts that I've played. They tried hard. They loved this game. They did whatever they wanted. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. I'm assuming the much later titles are probably a lot tighter, fix some of the pacing issues, and are probably great. But this game does have some of those issues. Pacing, just identity, and then a host of small decisions they made that they could have just tightened up, sort of quality of life things to really make the game feel more cohesive. But the world is super interesting. The story is intriguing. And even the clunky PC vibes are endearing for me. Okay, here's the story. If this game had come out 2 years before Warcraft 3, I'd have given it in GP just for its vision and attempted like scope and what it was wanting to do. But it didn't. And I think most people will be unwilling to take the bad with the good. I'm enamored with the concept of the game. I had some fun. I also had frustrations, but I feel like more people today, if they tried to play this game, are going to be frustrated with it than like it. And so for the masses, I'm going to not give this one in GP. I don't think it will work for most people. Super intriguing game. I have a lot of respect for it. I had a lot of very fun moments. I might go out and buy SpellForce 3 and play it all weekend long because I'm there for it. But still, no NGP.
I'll pick up where you left off. I hope by SpellForce 3 they had learned what works and what didn't work. I am also not against merging genres, but I think it is difficult and needs a deft hand because this game, this game suffered because it was trying to do two different things, and in trying to do two different things, it made each of the other worse than the sum of its parts. And I think that's always the risk when you're doing a merger. And so there are some cool concepts here that don't flesh themselves out in this game. And I can see the potential here and hope that it works itself out in 2 or 3. It will still be a genre collection that I want to watch rather than play, though.
Yeah.
This game doesn't do it. So SpellForce, The Order of Dawn, does not get New Game Plus
The
status
Order
from
of
me.
Dookie.
No, but see, unfair. But I can see why people would like it. Like, the people that are hardcore fans, I get it. I do. They've got too much time on their hands, but I get it.
Nice. So I'm going to call it what I did at the end of the first place. SpellForge does not
in my notes. I called it SpellForge.
Does not get New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? On our YouTube poll, 8% said yes, it's worth playing today. 3% said no, go play something else. And an unsurprising 89% have never played it before.
Ooh.
That's a huge number.
Of course.
Yeah, no one played this,
I didn't
dog.
think it was going to be... I didn't think it was going to be that big. I thought it would be big, but I didn't think it was
This game
going to
has
be that
if
big.
it has a following, it's cult.
And a probably record low played along with us this weekend sent in their thoughts. Lieutenant Pat X said, "SpellForce made me made quite." Oh, this is actually good.
Yeah, German.
Yeah, made quite an impact in Germany back then. It was a statement that German studios could innovate and compete with international competitors. Joke's on you. However, if you're planning to wrap it up in a quick 7-day playthrough, you're probably going to miss out on what makes the game truly shine. This one takes its time to build up. The mix of real-time strategy and RPG elements means there's a lot to learn, and the story, world building, and gameplay mechanics evolve slowly over time. Should you play it today? Even though I did like it, not really. Start with SpellForce 2 or 3, which are much more refined and better overall.
That's fun because, of course, Pat X submitted for this one.
Love that.
I have nothing against German developers, by the way. I just think this game sucks.
I don't think anyone thought that until now. Until now.
Yeah, now I'm questioning everything you've ever said.
I swear.
Harold said, overall, I can greatly enjoy RTS and RPGs. A big thing that makes these games, arguably all games, fun to me is that there is always something to either do or to think about. Mechanically, this is because things like movement speed, building speed, resource collecting, quest pacing, unit strengths and weaknesses, etc. are all very well balanced. Age of Empires 2 and StarCraft being the masters in that regard, in my opinion. It is exactly that aspect of the game that SpellForce can't quite seem to grip. While I'm still curious about the sequels, I would for now recommend the Warlords Battlecry series if the premise of RTS plus RPG is something you're interested in.
I'm skeptical.
Interesting.
But none of us have played?
I haven't heard of it,
I'm intrigued.
I'm skeptical.
I'm intrigued. I do think calling out just how dynamic the what is even the term? He literally was talking
chicken.
about it. Yeah, the chicken. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. SpellForce. I
give up.
Yeah.
I had a thought and it eludes me.
Mechanics.
Give up.
Shane said potential. That's probably the best way I could describe this game. The mixture of RTS and RPG is a bit surprising in how well it feels. Having a hero I'm invested in and care about among the hordes of replaceable faceless soldiers adds something to the formula. Later RTSs like StarCraft 2 even have some of that in the campaign, if I remember correctly, but not to this degree where you develop and level them over many scenarios. The pace in this game, however, just doesn't seem to be there. The game is slow as molasses, and the tutorial is a terrible demonstration of that. No NGP, it's actually a good demonstration of that, it's just a terrible tutorial.
Right.
No NGP here, but I must say that I am a bit curious to check out the game's sequels to see how the formula developed. Put your hand down.
There it is. He's right. That's the takeaway. Balance is the word I was looking for. Depending which hero you play and which race you play and any number of other things, which difficulty you play, this game's going to be all over the map for you.
BioWare
I think it
solved
was a
the
good
issue
thing for him to put out.
when they started making games. They were like, no, it needs to be an RPG first and 80-90%, and then sprinkle some light RTS combat, and it's perfect.
Nolan might not be wrong.
BioWare.
Although we
software.
didn't go to Kenny's development corner. You got anything that would make this
He
game
ain't
better?
got nothing.
I gave you a nugget already
Gross.
of the do buildings that
Oh, yeah, you
like
did.
influence your heroes
yeah.
and let you do
Do
customization there
buildings.
instead of armies.
For now, we're going to set aside SpellForce, the Order of Dawn, and we are going to randomly select the game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days from our Retro Master list. Any genre, 15 years old or older, any console.
Any crossover.
It can be literally anything. It's not true. Randomizing now.
Yeah.
We're going to the year 2004. Still very retro at this
1
point.
year. All right.
Yeah. We're going to be playing an action-adventure game on a console that I used to love, but she has hurt me in recent years.
Oh, we're in business here.
Are
So
we
GBA.
doing some GBA?
We're doing some GBA.
Okay.
Okay.
What did you say this game?
I
could
said
be?
it's an action-adventure 2004.
We're like 80% in business here, boys.
Oh, we're
So let's just see.
80% in business.
Yeah.
What if I told you that it was developed and published by a company?
We're still in business
Okay.
Any
Yeah,
company.
well, yeah, but yeah.
because he doesn't want to say
okay.
it because it starts with an N.
Well, that's good.
That company ends with an O.
Yeah, we're in business. It just bumped to 90%.
Interesting. It's actually a remake from a
100%.
series
I know
that that from a series that we played before. In fact, we played the original game. This is interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't
it
know
is.
it was a remake. It retells the story with updated visuals and gameplay. Interesting.
What's fun about this? The original was on Game Boy.
Y'all can't both be in the know and talk about the game without telling me.
All
what
right,
the game
everybody
is.
knows what it is. So find a copy and play along with us this week while Kenny tries to figure out that we're playing Metroid Zero Mission.
Now,
Oh, interesting.
listen. When I tell you that we played Fusion, which was the
Yes.
other GBA Metroid game, fantastic. Very loved, my favorite.
Good. A lot more straightforward.
This one is considered like top 3 Metroid games ever by a lot of people. It's really
But is it
high.
just because it is the first game just updated?
No, it's not just because that. Well, I mean, you could argue that, but it's just they change a lot. I mean, the game functions a lot differently, and so yeah, Kenny, the original is not on Game Boy. That's Samus Returns. That's a different one. This is a remake of the NES Metroid.
All right. Find a
I might play SpellForce 3 and just
Stop.
pretend like I
Wow.
played this game.
Wow.
Stop.
Wow. Find a copy of Metroid Zero Mission. Play it along with us this week.
Join us in Discord. We have a thriving community at discord.gg/newgameplus.
You can also support ongoing creation of your favorite retro gaming content by hopping on patreon.com and giving to New Game Plus. And yeah, it's a cool thing to do. We want to say thank you to our newest patrons, Kirk, the Tank, Caleb, and Rumaldo.
Is Kirk the
Appreciate
Tank?
y'all. No, that was a list.
comma,
There were
the tank,
commas,
comma?
There were commas there
okay.
that were implied if you were listening well. We want to say thank you to Jason, who is our newest producer level supporter.
Derulo.
Hey,
Jason, thanks for
Derulo.
hopping on board. And showing up Jason by coming out of left field, we've got Bill R as our newest director level supporter.
No one didn't even know.
So,
really?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
news
we got a new
to
director.
know.
Bill R.
We picked up a new director, so that'll be super
Don't
fun.
pick
Those
a
episodes are
SpellForce
always a total blast. I'd welcome it. And we will, of course, want to say thank you to our current directors, BroJim, Super Hyperd, and Siegfried, and to our large list of producer-level supporters, including Alex, Alias X, and Marley, and Antonin, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock, Shadow, Garlisle, Guardian Cade, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Joey, Jordan, Clint, Levi, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Retro Man, Sajin, Shane, Sasser, Scotty, Shauna, Snigmatic, Psycho Mantis, Thomas Tins, Turtle, Unbelievable, and Zion. We appreciate you.
You can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by Dave. Our video episode was edited by Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play again Metroid but this time, 0 mission. Until then, I'm still vanilla.
I'm confused by what you even mean.
I'm oat milk.
And this has been New Game Plus.